All right, so let's put the spotlight then on Inmobi Group that's doubling down on AI with the $200 million investment that's being made in AI commerce platform that's Glance AI and generative AI ad tech stack. This even as the company is looking at getting listed on the Lal Street as it prepares to get listed, like I said, on Indian bourses. To talk about all that's happening with the company, with the latest initiative into that side of AI-driven commerce, I'm now joined by Naveen Tewari, who's the founder and CEO of Inmobi and Glance. Naveen, thank you very much for taking the time out. It's not every day that you speak with us, but thank you very much for speaking to us here on ET Now. First things first, tell us about this new offering, Glance AI, which I believe is an AI native commerce platform. But the question is, how does it work? And how many users as of now have signed up for this platform? What's the kind of reception that you're getting?
Yeah, firstly, let me just tell you how it works. Fundamentally, what we have done is we have brought in generative AI in the world of commerce. This is the first such platform where generative AI and commerce comes together. So therefore, Glance AI is an AI commerce platform. The way this has been built, it has three foundations. It has three models that are running, in conjunction with each other to generate the outcome. But from a consumer experience point of view, what you would see is a consumer and the product are intelligently brought together basis last 20 years of learning of commerce. That's our foundation model of commerce that we've generated and created, right? So therefore, then we use generative AI to bring a consumer along with the product. And therefore, what we are really trying to bring in is a completely new way of shopping. And we think this is this is like the Uber moment of life, or a UPI moment of life, or even a ChatGPT moment of life, where pre-Glance AI, the way you would shop, and post-Glance AI, how you would shop would be very different.
All right, Naveen. So what's the kind of efficiencies that you're looking at, AI to reflect in your bottom lines on account of these AI-led deployments? Because remember, that's essentially the key reason why these AI-driven developments and, of course, efficiencies are being brought in.
We launched this in beta about 3 months ago. We have about 1 million users in North America, in India, and in Japan. The users have, well, the way I would put it, it's not, users not just engaging, they're obsessed. The 1 million users, they are roughly, generating what we would call, AI experiences or generative AI shopping experiences. They're generating about 18 such experiences a day, the 1 million users. And on each one of those generated experiences, which has a lot of information, a lot of insights, they spend about 59 seconds on each experience that they generate. So the product is showcasing unbelievable level of engagement. Not just this, 40% of those consumers are actually starting their shopping journeys from there. So they're really finding true value from the product because it gives you an ability to make decisions in a way that has never been done before. So we are over the moon. The product team is over the moon because I think we've created something very, very different. And in terms of where we expect the product to get to, look, we don't know how large it's going to become. It's very hard to say this today, but we are launching this in 140 countries today. And as it gets launched to 140 countries, only time will tell how big it becomes. But our expectations are that this would be one of those platforms that should enable people who buy online to a completely new experience. So we'll see. It's a disruptive platform to the current way of how the world shops. And so we'll see how it does.
You say that this is likely to be India's UPI moment for, of course, commerce that's driven by AI. But Naveen, a couple of months back, I think in February itself, you had spoken about AI-driven job cuts, and you said that that's going to happen on the back of AI-based automation. So at Inmobi, how much of your work has been automated, and what are the automation targets that you have for the rest of the company, for the rest of the year for the company?
Yeah, I think what I did say was that 80% of the software work that happens in companies will get automated. What that means are two things. One, will there be a change in your job profile of what you do as a software engineer? Yes. For example, the supply chain of of coding, which requires you to do data collection, to coding, to testing and deployment, a lot of that work will actually start to get automated. Does this necessarily mean that there will be job cuts? Not necessarily. What it does mean that if somebody is not upgrading to become an AI level software developer, yes, you don't have a job. And it's not necessarily only true for Inmobi. I think it's going to be true across the world. And so therefore, I think people are confusing the fact that job profile is changing for people versus employment. I think there is absolute requirement of employment, just that everybody would be significantly more efficient.
Right, Naveen. So do take us through your financials, the strategic areas for growth for the company and the outlook for growth that you're looking at and the targets for Inmobi that you're looking at this financial year, given the fact that, now you're making big investments into AI. Do you anticipate how is that going to look on your overall balance sheet? What's the growth outlook then you have?
Well, we are growing pretty well. We have two businesses. The ad business grows about 30-40% year on year. The glance business is growing about 80 to 100% year on year. So yeah, we are pretty kicked about this. We don't know how to project and figure out how Glance AI would drive that level of growth. It's too early to say, but we of course have very high expectations from it.
Right. And let me also talk to you, Naveen, about what's happening in North America, because it contributes 70 to 80% of Inmobi's revenues, right? So with policy disruptions that we're seeing from the Trump administrations, you do have Moody's downgrades also coming in for the United States. Tariffs are another pain point, for businesses that are doing business there and that are in some way related to the United States as a market for their business. How are you bracing a potential impact in terms of the spends, the kind of spends that the company is likely to attract or not likely to attract? What's the kind of dent that you anticipate on account of those policies?
Well, there is some impact, and I think everybody is trying to figure out what that impact would be. It's very hard to know today, what the policy impacts would look like exactly. But would ad spends necessarily go down? Is consumption going down? That's not necessarily true. So therefore, we are not necessarily seeing the impact on the ad spends in North America right now, and therefore that's not an area of worry for us.
Right. So there's going to be some impact, but if you could be a bit more specific about the North American market, what's the biggest point of concern with respect to that market for you today?
There is uncertainty in the market right now because the policies are not, they're not, we don't know the final effects of what the policies finally would come out to be. And so therefore there is uncertainty in the market for sure. So that does, you have to just stay on your feet to figure out what the exact policies would come out and what the impact of it would be. But in the absence of knowing anything, we are executing as if, the world is exactly how it should be.
Right. So there is uncertainty, I think, for all businesses that are currently operating in North America and have to do something to do with America as a market, Naveen. But I believe you're also in discussions to raise about $400 million in a Series E funding. When is that likely to happen? If you could give us some update on that, and how do you plan to deploy that capital, and why does that become important for you at this point in time?
We are actually pretty well capitalized, so we're not necessarily looking to raise much capital as of right now. We, of course, keep talking to the investors because there are strategic areas we may want to be in at a future stage. So we keep the investors informed with what we are really trying to do. But we are very well capitalized, so we don't have any capital requirements per se in the moment.
Right. And I have to ask you this question in terms of, fundraising or a public listing, because Inmobi has indicated its plans of going public in the next 2-3 years. Has there been any change in that timeline from your side?
Yeah, look, I think for any company, going public is a very important milestone. It's so good to see the Indian startups. A lot of them are essentially lining up to get and hit the public market. We would also do the same. It is a natural progression even for us, and we are thinking about that. We've not set any timeline for us in the moment, but we are clearly very actively thinking about this.
So you're saying that you haven't set a timeline, but you're actively thinking about an IPO. If you're actively thinking about an IPO, there has to be a timeline that you must have given to yourself and, of course, your company as a whole before you get listed.
Yeah, no, we don't know the timeline yet, but it should be over the next few years for sure.
All right. All right, Naveen. Let me ask you one final question before we let you go. What are your key asks of the government, in terms of what kind of regulatory reforms need to be made with respect to the flipping back to India? That story goes because a lot of startups like yourselves, for instance, are looking at that flip back to India. But what more could be done so far as ease of doing business with respect to the India market is concerned? And what more needs to be done in terms of regulatory easing of those reforms around the flip back?
Well, I think, in terms of flipping back to India, I think the process actually has been really far better. It's far better now than it was maybe 2 years ago. The changing the domicile of the company is now become far easier to do. I would say that's a huge plus in terms, and we're not just myself or our company, but many such companies are gaining from it. So I genuinely want to thank the government to be at it and to really solve for bringing the companies back into India and actually leveraging this amazing market, which is just growing. Our stock market is growing quite well, leveraging that stock market for our own benefit. So yeah, I'm quite kicked about that specific one. And so if I don't have a specific ask as of right now from a policy point of view, but this one change has really brought about a new wave of excitement within the entrepreneurial community, because suddenly the Indian market is the one that we would all love to go public in, and we would all be excited about it. And so therefore, bringing our companies back to India is a great norm.
All right. On that note, thank you very much, Naveen, for joining us here on ET Now and talking to us about growth plans, about the flip back to India, that policy, and what more needs to be done to ensure there is regulatory easing from the government side as well. So far as startups looking to come back to India is concerned, that's a huge opportunity anyway. But all the very best, for this new initiative that you've launched. You've decided to sort of expand it into 140 countries as well. That's going to be humongous. That's going to be big. And that's a great made in India, made for the world story. Thank you very much, Naveen, once again for joining us here on ET Now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to slip into a very short break, but lots more coming up on the other side. You don't want to miss that, so stay tuned to ET Now and do come back.